And later this morning, the UK Supreme Court will hand down its ruling on whether Holyrood has the power to hold a second Scottish independence referendum without the approval of the UK government.
The case was referred to the UK's highest court in an attempt to break the constitutional logjam, with Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon hoping to hold the second referendum in October next year.
The judgment is expected to be handed down at 9:45 a.m. this morning. We've been in Edinburgh asking people what they'd like to see happen.
Well, each to their own. If they really want that referendum, then let them have that referendum.
So divisive the first time round, and I hated having to vote about Brexit because it was such a stupid question.
So I think if there should be another referendum now, and then once that's passed, then it should be put to bed.
I think because based on what happened from the first one, a lot's changed, and I think a lot of people's minds about how things have gone have changed with that. So I think we should deserve a second chance at least.
I would like independence, but I don't trust the current government or the Tories to actually handle any kind of separation sensibly or rationally, or I'm a pragmatist.
Well, here to talk to us about what we can expect is political consultant Katie Frank. Good morning to you, Katie. Could there be an explosive decision today, do you think, from the Supreme Court?
Well, either way, whatever the Supreme Court rules, and if it rules at all, which is also in play here, it's going to upset either side of the debate on this issue in particular.
So fireworks, whatever happens today?
Absolutely, absolutely. Expect fireworks. There are marches being held all over Scotland. That's classic nationalism. They have this way of doing these marches. This is common, what you see every time the referendum is debated or it becomes a thorny issue. And you're having them everywhere from Glasgow to Orkney, for instance.
What would independence look like for Scotland? Because as a former MEP, one of the things that was constantly dangled was a right to rejoin the European Union, but Scotland can't meet the economic criteria, can it?
Well, that's certainly a question. Having worked in Brussels myself and seen the other political things and issues throughout Europe, for instance, while some may be supportive of Scotland joining the EU, other countries such as Spain would be concerned that would then reignite the movements and give them further powers in order to, have their own secessionist movement, win independence, and then rejoin the EU. Then you've also got the issue of, would they have to join the euro? Scotland said that it would want to keep its own currency in the form of a Scottish pound, although apparently they also want to keep the British pound during that transfer process, which could be very messy. So they would still have their interest rates set by the UK central bank, etc. So there's a lot there, and also then you're talking about how do they deal with the liabilities? The debts are shared across the United Kingdom that the government has. We don't have balanced books, neither do most governments throughout the world. So it would be about sharing those liabilities. Although I think Nicola Sturgeon referred to it as a solidarity payment, which is quite interesting.
In terms of the legal argument, this was heard over 2 days in October, and the Scottish Government are arguing that this referendum next October would be a sort of advisory referendum, that this would just be essentially an opinion poll. But Westminster's suspicious. They say, actually, we know that this isn't an opinion poll, and in fact, the opinion polls actually still show that the dial hasn't moved that much on the issue of independence, around 50-50 on this, so it'd certainly be a very close-run thing. But Westminster confident today that they will get the judgment they want. Are they right to be confident?
Yes, they are. Even just how you would actually go about operating a referendum, you need something called a Section 30 order. The Section 30 order basically temporarily lends powers from Westminster to Scotland in order to hold a referendum. So it's very clear that this is what we call a reserved matter, so a matter that is there for Westminster to decide upon, not Scotland. Whether you think rightly or wrongly about that, that's not what we're arguing about here. It's about a matter of and principle of the UK's constitutional law. And
in terms of how an independent Scotland would look economically, last time around, the huge emphasis was on, of course, Brent crude, North Sea oil. Now we're in very different times with net zero dominating the agenda. How could Scotland support itself economically?
Well, as someone who used to live in Aberdeen, I've seen the benefits of the oil and gas industry in the North Sea. However, like many governments, whether they're, central governments or devolved administrations, they're moving towards this net zero world, this net zero
Well, they
target.
were before the Ukraine
Well, they were.
war.
Exactly. The issue with the North Sea is that although there's still a lot of oil and gas there, it's about, one, the cost of getting it out of the ground. That's fine when you've got oil prices this high, but that's not usually the case. It's a very mature basin, so getting all of that is quite difficult. And there are certain tax exemptions for the oil and gas industry to go about exploring for new oil fields, etc. But the SNP are backed up by the Green Party in Scotland, and the Green Party are very anti-oil and gas. They claim to be an independence party, but the vast majority of people that vote for the Green Party are not doing so out of independence, unlike those who vote for the SNP. So it's unusual that they're going to tax the oil and gas industries to the hilt. And we also then come into a question of who owns the North Sea, etc. anyway.
The companies are American who drill, aren't they? They're not...
Well, you have a lot of different companies. You have even a lot of Norwegian companies, because we're not that far from Norway's oil and gas operations. You have so many different companies, whether it's, BP, Shell, etc., operating there. So would the Scottish Government do anything to encourage any more development in the North Sea? It's unlikely, and the oil and gas industry are rightly concerned. They were rightly concerned when the Greens backed up the SNP, and they should be concerned about that in an independent Scotland.
Yeah. Well, look, that judgment expected at 9:45 today, and as you say, it is possible that the judge may decide not to give any judgment at all and to offer an opinion. But whatever the decision today, as you say, fireworks, it's going to be big discussions and a very emotive topic. Really great to get your thoughts this morning. Thank you very much. Katie Frank, political consultant.